The lights blaze across a sea of faces, anticipation humming like electricity. On stage, Barron Trump leans into the microphone, that signature smirk dancing at the corner of his mouth. "Yes, we can," he says, his voice lilting with exaggerated rhythm, mock applause echoing from a few in the crowd. A ripple of uneasy laughter moves through the hall. Phones lift, red lights blink. This is the kind of moment the internet devours. Barack Obama sits a few feet away, expression unreadable. The room waits for a reaction. Instead, he simply reaches for his glass, takes a slow, deliberate sip, eyes never leaving the young man before him. The smirk flickers. Silence deepens, heavy and unfamiliar. In that pause, something shifts. The laughter sounds smaller, thinner. Obama places the glass down with quiet precision. The world seems to lean forward, caught between shock and curiosity, wondering what comes next. The moment stretches like a held breath, every second coiling tighter, and then, in that calm before the storm, the truth begins to gather behind Obama's eyes, measured, sharp, inevitable. But what happened in the next 9 seconds would leave even the harshest. Critics stunned and Barron visibly speechless. Outside the bright glare of the stage, the story has already begun to fracture the internet. Clips flood Twitter within minutes, half the crowd cheering Barron's boldness, the other half calling it disgraceful. Hashtags multiply like wildfire. Commentators type furiously, shaping the moment into something bigger than a speech, a generational standoff. A contest between entitlement and experience. The conference had been meant as a celebration of youth leadership, a bridge between the old guard and the next wave of voices. Obama came to guide, not to spar. Yet, as his name trends beside the word mocked, the air grows heavy with symbolism. For some, Barron is the embodiment of defiance, a young man unafraid to take a jab at the past. For others, he's the image of inherited arrogance, mistaking ridicule for rebellion. Every lens, every camera, every eye in the room sharpens on that divide. On stage, Obama folds his hands. The noise around him swells, applause, laughter, whispers. He's no longer just a mentor. He's a test of dignity in a culture addicted to spectacle. Barron glances at the crowd, then back at the man who once led a nation with words that moved the world. The tension is alive, electric, waiting. Because when Obama finally responded, it wasn't loud. It wasn't angry. It was something far more devastating. ChatGPT said, Barron Trump grew up in the eye of a political storm he never chose. His every gesture broadcast, every silence interpreted. From childhood, the cameras were constant companions, flashing bulbs, capturing a boy who learned early that attention wasn't earned, it was inherited. By the time he stepped into adulthood, the weight of that spotlight had fused with his confidence, shaping it into something sharper, harder in interviews. He spoke with polish and certainty, the cadence unmistakably familiar. When challenged, he'd tilt his head and smile, a gesture half-learned, half instinctive, before dismissing critics with a line about fake outrage or jealous losers. Crowds of supporters cheered, charmed by the resemblance to the past. The press called him the new Trump voice, a phrase that both lifted and trapped him. He leaned into it. At rallies and college panels, he talked of strength, dominance, legacy. His tone was slick, commanding. But it carried that same hollow ring, the performance of conviction without the burden of experience. Behind the scenes, aides whispered about his impatience, his need to win every exchange, his discomfort with stillness. He had learned from a man who conquered rooms through noise, who equated volume with power. But Barron's world was different, now one that didn't fear authority, but questioned it. Each smirk, each dismissive quip made him viral, but also vulnerable. To some, he was a prodigy of charisma. To others, a mirror of entitlement. And yet, beneath the bravado, there was a flicker of something more, in unease. A boy who'd been taught that confidence was armor, not honesty. It was there in his brief stumbles, in the way his eyes darted when applause faded too quickly. Still, in that crowded hall, he believed he owned the moment. He'd watched his father dominate rooms through noise, but in 9 seconds, He was about to learn the quiet weight of real power before the flashbulbs and headlines. There was a young man on the south side of Chicago, walking door to door with a clipboard and conviction. Barack Obama wasn't born into influence. He built it from scratch, one conversation, one handshake, one community meeting at a time. He learned early that leadership wasn't about being the loudest in the room, the one still standing when the noise faded. Flash to 2004, the Democratic National Convention. A young senator steps up to the podium, voice steady, cadence rising like a wave. There's not a liberal America and a conservative America, there's the United States of America. In that instant, the crowd transforms, not because he shouts, but because he speaks what they already believe but had forgotten how to say. That night, a new kind of power was born, one that didn't demand attention. It commanded it. Years in the White House refined that power into precision. Every insult, every cartoon, every rumor was met with the same unshakable calm. His restraint became both shield and sword. Critics mistook it for softness, never realizing that silence was his scalpel. Cutting through arrogance with dignity. When tempers flared, he didn't raise his voice. He raised the standard. When mocked for empathy, he doubled down on it. The more chaos swirled around him, the more centered he became, as if the storm only confirmed his purpose. And through it all, he never forgot where he came from, the church basements, the classrooms, the faces that looked to him not for entertainment, but for hope. So when laughter echoed across that hall, Obama didn't flinch. He'd been here before, and this time the lesson was personal. The tension clings to the air, thick as heat before a storm. Cameras tighten their focus, Barron's smirk, Obama's stillness, the uneasy faces in between. For a heartbeat, it feels like time itself is waiting for someone to breathe. Then Obama steps forward, adjusts the microphone, and the room exhales. His voice is quiet, steady, carrying none of the weight of retaliation, only reflection. You know, he begins, when I was your age, I thought I was the smartest man in the room. I remember laughing at someone I didn't understand, thinking my words made me stronger. He pauses, eyes scanning the crowd. But life has a funny way of reminding you that mockery isn't strength. It's fear in disguise. The laughter that once flickered in the front rows begins to dim. Barron's grin tightens, uncertain. Obama continues, each word deliberate, measured, as if chiseling truth from stone. It took me years and a few hard lessons to realize that every person you mock carries a story you haven't lived. And when you finally learn to listen to those stories, you become something more than clever. You become wise. The crowd begins to shift, the energy tilting. Applause stirs softly, spreading like a spark. Obama doesn't raise his hand or his tone. He simply stands there, a man untouched by provocation, reshaping the moment without needing to crush anyone. Barron blinks, the smirk dissolving into a flicker of reflection. Somewhere in that silence he feels the shift, the loss of control, the presence of grace. And then, in a single sentence, Obama turned the entire hall into silence. Obama leans forward. The light catches the silver in his hair, the quiet authority in his eyes. The room hangs on his next breath. Mocking greatness, he begins, voice steady and unhurried. Doesn't make you powerful. It only reminds people how little you've achieved. A sound cuts through the air, a collective gasp. Cameras flash. Even the hum of the AC feels louder now. Obama doesn't flinch. He lets the silence linger like a lesson unspoken. Every second stretches. Every eye is locked on him. Then softly, he continues. You don't have to agree with me, he says, tone level, patient. But you should never laugh at the effort it takes to rise above hate. Because one day, you'll need people to show you that same grace. It's not a scolding, it's a mirror. His words fall like truth disguised as compassion. Barron's jaw tightens, his earlier grin gone. The smirk that once fed the cameras now feels like a relic of a boy, trying too hard to be his father's shadow. Obama straightens, taking a breath as the audience begins to stir. Applause rises, hesitant at first, then swelling. Reporters glance at each other, realizing they've just witnessed something that will loop endlessly on every screen by nightfall. But Obama isn't finished. His tone shifts not to gloat, but to teach. You see, leadership isn't about echoing noise. It's about standing in the silence and knowing who you are. Anyone can shout. Few can listen. The applause grows louder, some rising to their feet. A young woman in the front row wipes a tear. Someone in the back whispers, "That's why he's still the president in people's hearts." Obama looks toward Barron, not with scorn, but with something unexpected. Empathy. "You've got time," he says gently. "You've got a platform. Use it to lift people, not mock them. Because America doesn't need louder voices, it needs wiser ones." Every camera in the room captures the same image, a man standing tall in calm defiance, and a boy caught between humiliation and awakening. Barron looks down, his hands clasped. The crowd's cheers feel distant now, swallowed by the echo of a truth he can't dismiss. Obama gives one final nod. "If you want to lead America," he says, voice dropping to a near whisper, "start by listening." The loudest voice in the room isn't always the right one. Then he steps back. The applause crashes like a wave. Reporters rise to their feet. Hashtags form in real time. Hashtag yes we still can. Hashtag Obama Masterclass. Hashtag 9 seconds. Some in the crowd are in tears. Others just shake their heads, stunned by the effortless precision of the moment. Barron doesn't move. His expression is unreadable, a cocktail of pride, confusion, and something that looks dangerously close to humility. And as Obama walks off the stage, the room feels changed. Not because a man won an argument, but because dignity just rewrote the rules of one. But the real shock came later, when that 9-second moment went viral across the world, ChatGPT said. By mid-afternoon, the world had already seen it. The 9-second clip of Barron Trump's mockery cut short by Obama's calm, devastating response dominated every feed. On Twitter, hashtag schooled by Obama surged, trending globally within minutes. TikTok creators stitched reactions, remixing the pause, the words, the stunned silence, layering dramatic music and captions that read, "This is how you handle arrogance." YouTube compilations went viral, combining slow-motion reactions of the audience with the quiet authority of Obama's delivery. Late-night hosts replayed it, analyzing every subtle glance, every measured pause. And every moment Barron's smirk faded into uncertainty. Even journalists who rarely spared praise for Obama found themselves admitting that was class. Editorials debated tone and timing, dissecting how dignity could feel so sharply like justice. Meanwhile, Barron's team released a brief, tightly worded statement. He respects all public figures. The words were polite, careful, but they couldn't erase the viral footage etched into millions of screens, nor the collective sense that the moment belonged to someone larger than spectacle. Across the globe, viewers shared the clip in living rooms, offices, and classrooms. The commentary was unanimous. The lesson wasn't in winning an argument. It was in commanding respect without aggression. News outlets dissected it as both a public humiliation and a masterclass in humility. Social media users debated endlessly. But the verdict was clear: audiences sided with calm, earned authority over youthful arrogance. The ripple effect extended beyond politics. Memes flourished, late-night monologues flourished, voices across generations found themselves referencing the moment as shorthand for quiet power. Clips of Obama's measured responses were replayed as examples of leadership, patience, and the weight of experience. Barron's smirk, once viral, became a symbol of what happens when legacy meets untested ego. In classrooms, in comment sections, in casual conversations, the 9 seconds took on a life of their own, a shared cultural touchstone, a lesson in dignity that no amount of attention could diminish. The world watched, paused, and absorbed it. A reminder that power isn't about volume, it's about presence. And yet, what Obama said next off camera would make the entire moment feel even more profound. Backstage, the noise of the hall fades into a distant hum. Cameras no longer flash. The applause, the gasps, the trending hashtags all exist somewhere else now, in another world. Here, it is quiet. Just two people standing, separated by experience, yet connected by the fragile, unspoken potential for growth. Obama looks at Barron, the weight of the moment still settling in the young man's chest. His voice is calm, low, deliberate. "You're young," he says. "That's your advantage. Don't waste it trying to be me or your father. Be better." There is no judgment in his tone, no triumph. Just clarity. Just mentorship distilled to its purest form. He lets the words hang, allowing Barron to wrestle with them in silence. In that instant, the lesson becomes intimate, personal. It's unforgettable. Barron shifts uncomfortably, absorbing the magnitude of what he has witnessed. The viral moment, the applause. The social media uproar all pales in comparison to the quiet force of a man who has lived the lessons Barron is only beginning to understand. The irony is unmistakable. What appeared as public humiliation transforms into an invitation to maturity, a chance to reshape the future. Obama steps back slightly, letting the weight of the room, or rather, the absence of it, carry the teaching. "Use your platform wisely," he adds softly. "Leadership isn't about being the loudest. It's about listening, learning, and lifting others when you can." Barron swallows, the words sinking into a part of him that had been dulled by entitlement and expectation. For the first time, he sees the power of restraint. It's the gravity of dignity, the quiet, unshakable force of wisdom. No cameras, no headlines. Just a passing of knowledge that will outlast any clip, any meme, any viral moment. And in that stillness, something shifts. The boy who mocked is not vanquished, but invited into possibility. Humility replaces arrogance. Reflection replaces impulse. And that quiet moment would become the most powerful lesson no headline ever captured in a world drowning in noise and mockery. The quiet voice of reason still carries the greatest weight. True strength doesn't need to shout. It doesn't need applause. It simply stands, steady and unwavering, shaping moments that last far longer than headlines or viral clips. The screen fades to black, leaving only the echo of Obama's words, "Respect isn't inherited, it's earned. One choice at a time." The simplicity of the statement lingers, a reminder that dignity, patience, and wisdom are never accidental. They are deliberate acts of character. And now, the story belongs to you. If you believe in dignity over arrogance, in grace over spectacle, share this moment. Let the world see that wisdom still matters, that calm can triumph over chaos, and that true leadership is measured not by volume, but by integrity. Every like, every comment, every share is more than engagement, it's a declaration. You stand for the values that elevate humanity, that honor effort and empathy above mockery and noise. Carry that lesson forward. Stand tall, listen more than you speak, and remember, the quietest voice often leaves the deepest mark.